Hi, I'm Stefano Creatini, a passionate advocate for regenerative agriculture. Welcome to Lance's Garden. Lance is a master gardener with over 40 years of experience growing 95% of his food on just half an acre of land, despite living in one of the toughest climates for gardening. A year ago, I had the privilege of filming his incredible garden. That video resonated with so many people, garnering over 1.5 million views on YouTube. Countless viewers asked for more, eager to learn from Lance's wealth of knowledge. So over the past year, we've documented Lance's journey through an entire growing season. From planting and planting to harvesting and preserving, Lance shares his tried and true methods for creating a thriving garden no matter where you live. This is more than a course. It's a masterclass in self-sufficiency and the art of gardening. Enjoy and happy gardening.
Lance Swigert, and we're doing a garden course here, and it's March 9th. And it's actually a sunny day, but as you can see, I have my stay-at-home jacket, and it's still cold here. You know, it's probably only 40 degrees. The first thing I do is I start making compost. I just turned these 2 yesterday and 1 this morning. This first one's been turned 3 times. That's actually been turned twice. That was the first one. And I still have room to make 1 more compost pile. And at some point we might film making that. You can see all my composting materials. This pile over here is all waste products from last year's garden and the kitchen. And that other pile is all leaves. And what's underneath that straw, I put the straw down and pallets on top. That's all leaves also. And I'm using those. That straw I'll use for mulch during the summer on the potatoes. And then I'll compost it. This pile here is compost I made last summer and fall, and then I shredded it. This is the really, really good stuff. Letting it sit and age all winter long just does wonders. There's just something special about it, just some energy or whatever you want to call. And I'll use this as I make the beds. There's 3 wheelbarrows of that stuff. There's 1 wheelbarrow of spoiled hay and 1 wheelbarrow of leaves. And then I throw on a few shovelfuls of compost. This is like the yeast or the starter. Throw that down, put an inch or 2 of manure on top of it, then I water it. And then I repeat it again. Do that same 3 wheelbarrows of the really coarse stuff, and then some hay, spoiled hay, leaves, and then some finished compost as a starter, manure, and then I water it down with a hose, and then I hill it up. As you can see, it's hilled up like this and stuff. And these are all smoking hot now. This is my thermometer. You stick that in there. We'll come back in a little bit. We'll get how hot it is. You know, lots of people like to do it. They want it 100 and something. I'm just thankful it gets hot. I don't know what temperature or anything like that. Since we're going to talk tools, that's actually a Scottish manure fork from an old tool company. This is Scottish manure fork. You can already go ahead and feel it.
Oh yeah, we're warm.
This is what's called solid socket. Here's a Scottish manure fork strapped. I like the strapped one better. Smith & Hawkins spading fork. They're indestructible. The Scottish manure fork.
What's the difference between a spading fork on the right and a Spanish?
This is for turning compost and manure, light work. Where this is for digging, spading. This is actually digging. I'm sorry to say Smith & Hawkins went out of business, or closed their business, sold it, whatever. So you cannot get these ones. This is the same. It's called Clarington Forge. That's a spading fork. And I think you have to go to the Terrain as the company, catalog, or whoever is the distributor. But that's what you can get now. It's a little bit smaller.
So Terrain is the company?
Terrain is the company, yeah. Okay, and that's $100. You know, when I bought these, they were $45 and $50. That's still available. A little different, but still it's a really good tool. Oh, here's a fun one. That's actually a broad fork. And this is for people that don't want to turn soil, do deep tilling, and you still got beds. You can go down. Those tines are about 11.5 inches. And all you do is you step on it, go down, and then you just lift the soil. You don't turn it, you just lift it up. But you, generally speaking, you have compost on the ground. This one I bought from Johnny's seed company out of Albion, Maine. There's all sorts of different varieties. I've seen some that are really big and heavy, and for the heavy soils, my soils are doing just fine. I can use this thing. And I do that, spread the compost and use that thing on all the beds. These things are just leaf rakes, and I like the spring tooth leaf rakes. This is a irrigating shovel. You see it's not so bowled out, and it's more straight off the handle. This angle here, that's called a cant. And the less cant, the better. This thing you can do 3 times the amount of work as that one. Even though this is bigger, and this is designed to move loose material. It's not designed to dig in soil. See the different angles. When I go to yard sales, this is what I look for, because they're not making them much anymore. And I have seen it in some catalogs, but it's way worth buying really good tools, because you only have to buy them once. Buy cheap tools, you break the handles. You got to buy it again. If you can get these, that's a Warren hoe. You can weed with this, but what I really use this for is to make my rows, because I do both row irrigation and sprinkler, but this really works. Also, when I go to plant potatoes, this is the perfect hole where I measure them out with. You can sharpen that, and these are really, really good. And again, it's a Warren hoe, and I hope you can find one. I don't see them too often. It's called a Warren hoe. And then just a regular garden rake. These days, these tines are really wide now, and they're not thin like this. So if you can find them with these thinner teeth, you'll get a much better grading. I think they went that way because people say if you lean it like this or lean it down, you step on it, you hurt your feet, which you do. I've never heard of a person hurting themselves with these. Just a regular garden rake. The other thing I see is people use these wrongly. These are meant to go back and forth this way. And I see people doing this, and then they're bent. The tines and stuff are bent. They're useless anymore. Just back and forth raking. I'll use this in a little bit just to show you how they can be used. And I'm trying to think of what else I use. Oh, this is a good one. This is what I use to actually turn compost. Now I've had this for 30, 40 years, and I've broken the handle twice. So it's 12 inches shorter than what it used to be. But this, I think I bought this in Southern California, and I think the name is called a potato fork. Don't ask me why, but it's technically just a manure fork bent over to be a cultivator. And this is what I use to turn compost with, and it works really well. Anyways, what else do I got in here? That's a antique hay fork. If you look at manure fork, they're heavier and shorter. This is for hay or leaves, that kind of stuff. It works really good in the longer handle. If you need to pick something up and throw it, you can. I use this mainly for when I'm making the compost pile. This is what I use to fork it into the wheelbarrow to dump it for the pile. Just all sorts of stuff there. And I got this 40 years ago, and it was an antique then. I got this at an auction house. These are again Smith & Hawkins, that old company. And this is what you call a sod shovel. These are really, really solid. And what I use them for is to edge the beds. Yeah, and stuff. I'll put a string down and just, what's that? Go all the way around the beds like that. And you can see this one is a bit older, and it's, what, about an inch shorter, just being worn out. And another thing about shovels, see this where you put your foot on it? That is called threaded. When you look at where's that irrigation shovel? There's no thread on it there. I have seen people actually weld something on because you're digging on it so much that I actually have put holes in my shoes because I put my boot right there sometimes. These are threaded. You have no problem. Got plenty of room there to push down on with your shovel. And the only other thing I actually use here for this compost, good old scoop shovels. And I don't get aluminum ones. I'll go to yard sales or things like that, or I'll be working on and get steel. But this works really good, and shove the manure, turning compost, all that kind of stuff. I have a really good one that is well over 100 years old. I worked for a woman. She was died at 104. This was her father's coal shovel. And you can just see that's the original handle. It got burnt when he was shoveling coal. There's no wiggle in it. The metal is totally, you can't even find this kind of metal anymore. If you find these things, they're really good and they're really fun to work with. But anyways, we can head out to the garden and you'll see that nothing is planted to speak of.
What are we looking for at the beginning of the spring? What are we looking to do?
I've actually measured this area out to right here. You can see the stick. And I'm gonna dig the grass right off the edge because that's the only place the grass is. This is gonna be 1.5 beds of onions, and then the poppies for poppy seeds, and then the first bed of carrots. And I'll systematically, as I'm getting ready to plant, I'll do the whole edge, you know, but I only do it as I need to do it. I don't do the whole place. So that's what I'm doing here. This bed, I'm gonna start planting. This bed, I put the compost in last fall and hand turned it. So everything you see here, I actually did with a shovel. I will rake this out and plant this starting in the next week or so, but I'm gonna plant spinach, lettuce, cilantro, dill, green onions, and I'll do 3 different plantings in here. I'll plant the spinach when it's, not spinach, peas when it's time, snow peas and snap peas. That bed over there is gonna be all seed crop. Carrots, onions, beets, maybe some red romaine lettuce over there. You work with the weather. Even though it was showers and stuff like that, the ground here is not that wet. You can see it just sort of, and what I'm doing is last fall when I turned it, you see you can see clumps of grass right there, and that's what I want to get out. And everything goes into the wheelbarrow and goes into the compost, every last bit. All weeds, all roots, everything organic goes back in. If you're using horse manure, you get grass seed. If you're using cow manure, you get clover. And I'd rather have clover than grass. That's a whole nother topic. But this is, you know, 40 years of working soil. That's frozen from this morning's frost. And last year, this was the seed crop. And then after the seed crop was done, I came back and planted buckwheat for just a late summer, fall cover crop. These 2 beds that I'm going to be planting go north-south. And so in the morning, that side's warm. In the afternoon, this side's warm. Of course, the south end is always warmer than everybody else. And the north end is always colder. And it makes a difference in the early spring or the late fall. It's not so much during the midsummer. And if you can, in North America, you make your rows or beds north-south. You make them east and west, when the plants are tall, shades the north side. Make them north-south, there's only the very end that's shaded. I've done this so much, I know exactly what I'm looking for. And roots and weeds and have very distinct looks and stuff. This is just old, some of the old compost that didn't rot. So I'm gonna put it through the next pile. And it's cold enough, as you can see, there's not very many worms coming up top. If it was warmer, the worms would be up in here, but they're down low. And this is another thing, my little pet peeve. See this here? This is the blue baling twine after they've baled a bale of hay. And this is blue, there's orange, there's yellows. They used to use black. But anyways, any plastic I pick up goes in my front left pocket and gets put in the trash. If you're using any type of manure, you're gonna have baling twine threads. And I do these kind of projects, not all at once. Come out here 30 minutes, then I go do something else. So I'm never wearing myself completely out doing one project.
And what's the problem with the grass will grow from those clippings?
The grass will grow right back. This would be solid grass in 1 year if I didn't do this. and I do it every year. And so if I don't like the look of edging, so I don't use it, I just dig it out. Yeah, and it's compost material. And that's one of those spading forks I mentioned. This wheelbarrow I bought in 1979. I've replaced the handles twice, and I've replaced the wheels a couple of times. You can't get this kind of metal anymore. If you see something like that at a yard sale, grab it. You can always buy the handles, because the handles, you can go to any hardware store and they have that whole set. And you can always get new tires. What you do when you're raking out one of these beds is also, you can see that this has all been hilled up. When you're making a bed, you work the middle back to the edge. You don't work for this way in, because then you're stepping on it. But if you work from the middle out to the edge, by the time you're finished, you got a perfectly ready bed. And you just gently pull it right to the edge.
So what are you making right now?
I'm gonna flatten this, make it into a planting bed. You can do it rounded, and you actually increase your space with a rounded bed over a flat bed. But what happens, in my experience here, is there's so many worms that they work that edge of the rounded bed and it collapses it. And so you lose whatever's planted on the sides. So I don't round beds here anymore. That corner, the north end, is frozen. And I've gotten most rocks out. If there's any rocks that show up in these beds, it comes from the manure. There's always gravel and stuff in there. It's the corners that are hard. You just keep on working around the edges, and every once in a while, see, there's a bunch of grass. I'll get that later, but at least I don't want it in my soil. This is quackgrass, and it will send a shoot underground 3 or 4 feet before it comes up. That's a real nasty one. And all this grass that you see that's lawn just happened. I did not plant it. Once I started watering, I saw what was going on, and just keeps it mowed. But you can see that after 30, 40 years of compost, it's not red clay. It makes it fun. Yeah, when I get really into the thing, I have a bucket for rocks, a bucket for weeds, and my pocket for plastic. This side, being the west side, is still frozen. The sun hasn't gotten on it, so that's why I'm seeing these little chunks. What's nice about having the grass though, I'm not standing in mud. And I don't make any particular effort to water the grass. As I'm watering my beds and stuff, the grass gets watered.
You know, for the home gardener, would you recommend a raised bed?
They could do something like this. This is all done by hand, or lots of people do raised beds made out of wood, or if you want something more durable, cement blocks. They'll last. But maybe you're just there for a year or so. You know, you can just do some wood, it'd be fine. Wood's gonna rot, no two ways about it. And I used to do what's called double digging, and that's a process where you measure out your bed like this, and generally speaking about 4 feet. The length is only what fits in your yard, but 4 feet wide. It's what you can reach into the middle without walking on the soil. But you take out that first row of soil, put it in a wheelbarrow, and down where you reach down to, you take that spading fork and loosen it up. Okay, and then you move the soil, and that first wheelbarrow of soil goes to the other end.
It's like a deep tillage almost.
Yeah, instead of being only work this length, it's work this deep. You get better water penetration, stuff like that. And you know, if you're gonna till that deep or work it that deep, you don't want to turn the soil. You want to keep the topsoil that's up on top and the subsoil down on the bottom. Your soil life on topsoil is for the top 2 to 6 inches. And then after that, it's actually a different soil life. It's there, but it's different. And so what you could do if you're a first-time gardener is lightly till an area out and mark off your beds that way, instead of doing some heavy digging like this, just to get started. It will still work, and you can use any type of manure will work. You don't have to use compost at the beginning. If you can get some manure, if you're gonna get fresh manure, you're gonna let it sit. You're gonna till it in and let the ground sit for 2 weeks, and then just plant away. There's only one plant that I know that you don't want to put fresh manure on, and that's potatoes. If you're gonna grow potatoes, I wouldn't even fertilize. I just till it and plant them and mulch them as you can. I'm gonna plant some peas in here. I'll plant them right down the middle for 8 feet, 10 feet, and then I'll plant spinach and lettuce on the sides. You could probably put 4 to 5 rows of spinach in there. Same with lettuce. You will be planting, the first row is right on the edge. That will be the first row like that. I'm not worried about getting big plants at that point. I'm just wanting some fresh greens. I'm gonna come back at the very end and pack this right on the edge. And this time of year, I actually have sprinkler systems with spigots, but I won't turn the water system on because it's too cold yet. And I'll actually run hose from the spigot off the house. You don't have to water that much to get the things to germinate this time of year. You've got to be careful because the soil's cool and it's damp, and seeds might come up, but you also might rot them. And lettuce likes to be about 45 degrees, maybe a little warmer for germination. Everything will come up now, but it takes a little bit longer because the days are short and it's cooler. So I hope people can adapt this because I'm at 6,000 feet.
But if you can grow it here, you can grow it anywhere.
You can do it anywhere. Again, I'm making this look, this is 40 years of practice here. And sometimes if you want, you can take those clods out, put them in the compost. They'll break down. Okay, that's good. And then what you do is just to get this soil packed in, you go around the edge. This will hold the bed's shape by doing this. Just a little tap. I'm not packing it down, just on the edges.
So what is the next step?
Well, the next step, I'll measure out the amount of peas, because that's actually a trellis. And then, not gonna plant that yet. It's too early for peas. The smoother the skin, the more cold hardy it is. The more wrinkled the skin, the less cold hardy. And right now, the soil's too cool, or too cold, and those seeds will just rot in the ground, no matter what kind you do. Give yourself some time. First week of April, you can probably start doing it. But I will go ahead and plant some spinach and lettuce. I got some lettuces that won't even germinate once it gets above 65 degrees. And they're really good. So I want to plant those guys. I'll do some green onions in here. The spinach, I'll plant a little bit larger space. The lettuce, I won't, just because it's what I eat in 2 weeks. And actually, I'll plant this soon, and I won't even plant anything again for 3 weeks because the days are too short. And then once I get really into the season, I ended up planting about every 10 days.
So just for today, we're really just talking about bed prep.
Yeah.
And can you talk about what exactly you're going to do in this field? Like, what are the next steps? So tell us what happened from the end of last season.
This was actually kamut. This area was barley, and then over here was the squash. And then as I harvested, I hand turned everything. What I also did is I sprinkle soil sulfur around that. I get 100 pounds and do the whole place. And the reason why I'm using sulfur is the bacteria in the ground will take that and make it into sulfuric acid, which will help neutralize the alkalinity of my well water. And I do that in the fall so that it brings it back down. The well water's got a lot of minerals in there. And now it's been sitting, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing as far as digging this grass out on the edges, get this ready for a carrot bed and onions. Well, there'll be 3 beds. There are 1.5 beds of onions and then 1 bed of carrots. And I'll use that other half of that onion bed to probably plant poppies for poppy seeds, Hungarian blue bread poppy seeds, and other stuff. I don't know until I get there. And maybe it will go in this bed, maybe it will go in this bed. I don't know until I get there. Just sort of one of those whims, as things go along. And even this is actually 2 weeks earlier than usual.
Like here in the clumps that we're looking at, what are you going to do versus this little raised bed that we just did?
Those beds, I don't have the pathways measured out. I just measured, like I said, to that stake, and it's 3 beds. I will edge this, and then I'm going to measure out where the beds are and the pathways are. Then I'm going to broad fork it, and then I will bring in 6 to 7 wheelbarrows of that finished compost, and I will lightly till that in.
So you work from one side with the broad fork out so you don't step on it again.
I will start at one end and work right down, and I actually will be stepping in the bed, but it'll be the only time I step in the bed. And I work backwards and I go down one side because I'll have all the beds measured out by then, and I'll have the edge of the bed and I'll work that broad fork down one edge and then go down up the other.
And then you'll have a walkway between that.
And then
So 2 broad forks and then a walkway.
Yep. And I stopped making this kind of raised bed for this. And the reason I did that is the beds were getting so high and they actually dry out faster. So I stopped doing that, and it actually has worked out just fine. People said, oh no, you won't get the production. But actually, by not making this raised bed like this, what you don't see is from here's the edge of the bed to here is 4 inches. Well, I've lost 4 inches of planting just on one side, so that's 8 inches. But by keeping them flat out there, I've actually gained a row, so I can plant more with the flatbed. I'm not walking on them or anything, so they're doing just fine.
So this is just early season work. Nothing else you have to do right now?
Well, I've already pruned all the fruit trees, and the grapevines get pruned in early April.
Hey there, homesteaders. We're proud to announce that Perma Resilience School Community is now officially live. This is more than a course. This is a hub for permaculture and homesteader enthusiasts like you. We have over 100 hours of in-depth coursework worth over $1,300, now available for just a low monthly subscription. Plus, we have amazing experts like Lance coming in for weekly webinars and Q&As, content you won't find anywhere else. Our interactive community is filled with passionate members, sharing ideas, advice, and even competing for our monthly prizes. You can start today for just $25 a month with a 7-day free trial to explore everything we have to offer. There's never been a better time to invest in your future. Click the link below to join Perma Resilience, and I'll see you in the community.
Tank? Okay, good. He's way over there.
God, it's about to pop.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be a good year, though. It's still pretty cold.
It's still cold. It's way too much snow still up there.
We might lose apricots here.
Yeah. Anyways, but I've been busy to say the least.
Oh, wow. Look at this. This is the last time.
Yeah, this is, what is it, March 28th?
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff. And I broad forked these 2 beds, and then I put 6 wheelbarrows of compost in each one of them, and then tilled it in only about this deep. This one's going to be all onions, all the way to the top. The top part will be onions, and then where you see where it's a little bit darker, wet, that's actually Hungarian blue-red poppies for poppy seeds, and this is potato onions.
And poppies go in the ground now already?
Yeah, they're. I had one volunteer. It was this big, and then this I'll broad fork this in a bit, but this is the first bed of 5 beds of carrots. And I'll plant these onions and carrots in about 2 weeks. And then this, yeah, and they're planted now though. We have Swiss chard, a spring garlic called silver rose. There's garlic, most garlic's planted in the fall. This one's planted in the spring, and it actually stores longer. So it will come up, and you harvest it about 2 weeks after the other garlic is when you harvest it. And then we have an early type of carrot called rumba. There's 6 rows right there. And then this is just some peas down the middle. And up there, I planted spinach and lettuce and some green onions on the sides. And the very end of the bed is Sutherland kale. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll plant these 2 sides of where these peas are with spinach and lettuce and cilantro, green onions. And what I'm doing here, I realize I don't have any more planting space ready for more early planting. So I'm getting this area ready. I got to dig the grass off the edges. And then in 2 or 3 weeks, I'll put compost here and start, because I haven't planted parsley. And this will be like the catch-all bed. They'll get a lot of different stuff. And if you recall the corn patch of last year, yeah, well, I came in here and I raked out all the clumps of roots. I had left the roots in there with a cut off stalk. So that's why that is all moved out. This is an asparagus bed that's all dug all the grass out as best I can. It's ready to go. You know, I'm not going to do anything else more with this.
And asparagus, you plant deep.
Yeah, the crowns are about 17, 18 inches down. So there's not a problem just digging like mad. And this will all settle. This will be half that size. And this is something that happens if you pay attention. Volunteer asparagus has already come up. You can see it down here. See that? And this started coming up about 2 weeks ago. you know, it gets warm enough and stuff. And so what all these tarps are, as you see them, are to keep them from getting frozen. Everybody's starting to pop, even though it hasn't been that warm. It's still not that warm. If you recall, I had all that mulch on that, right, and that's celery, and that all wintered over, and there would be more, but the voles got in there and ate them. So anyways, I might leave that there for seed. I'm growing at the very end, and we'll walk down there, some celeriac from Horton Nash for his seed crops. If that grows, it will cross-pollinate with the celery, so I'll take the celery out.
This is kohlrabi here?
This right here is Finocchio, bulb fennel. I stored this in buckets of sand, and we planted this out Saturday. So this whole bed got planted out Saturday. So you got Finocchio, New York early onions, and then you have Detroit dark red beets right here. They were all starting to sprout, and then these are red core chantenates. You know, I'm covering them at night, and this is the celeriac. And this is the first time I've ever done any of this. And that one will grow. That one looks like it will. We'll find out. See how they do. They're planted from after we've planted them, we found out that they were planted a little bit too close together.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's what the space we have. And then this is a row of sweet peas. And it's just for flowers. Sweet peas in the pod is poisonous. And the seeds are poisonous, so you can't eat it, but they sure smell good.
Sweet peas?
Sweet peas for flowers.
You gotta be careful not to eat them then.
You don't eat them. So many people think they can, but you can't. And then this is all ready to go. This is gonna be the potato patch. The seed potatoes will come in, I was just told, Monday. In a week or two, I'll start planting the early.
What variety?
German butterballs, rose fin apple, fingerling, early red, might be red Norland or red Sangre. Then I'll get a Yukon Gold, and those will be, the Yukon Gold and the reds are mainly for early.
And where do you order?
These ones came from the Maine potato lady. I've tried different things, and we used to have out of Eckert, just west of here, we had the largest organic seed potato company in the country. And they eventually moved on. Yeah, and it was really nice to have that here. But it's not here anymore. The garlic's growing just fine. Yep. This I think is going to be like tomatoes, cucumbers, maybe some summer squash and delicata squash. And we'll see what else I put in there. That will be dry beans. The reason you see all these sticks, I measured out where I'm going to put things. And this is going to be a patch of Arabian blue barley. And then another patch of dry beans. And the last part will be popcorn. So we got it pretty much planned out. Awesome. You know? So now it's soil prep and you got to deal with the weather. This is going to be the first bed of carrots. And I started broad forking this morning. And I'm going to broad fork from the top down now on the other side. And all these paths are 2 feet wide. The beds are 4 feet. And what this does is it cultivates a little over 11 inches down, but it doesn't turn the soil. In some places, you can go all the way down, and some places you hit rocks. Luckily, I've been here long enough that I've gotten most of the rocks out, except for the really big ones, and they just get to stay there. And this comes from Johnny's selected seeds out of Maine, Albion, Maine. I think it's Albion. And they make all different types of these broad forks. I like this one. The ones that I've seen for heavy soils, the tines are way too big to work. So I like this one. And one of the things they did is if it does bend off a root or a rock, you can hammer it right back out. Get a little bit of exercise. It's one of the things that you can do early in the morning or late in the evening. You don't need much light to do this. You know, it goes down pretty easy, except for that last inch. This time of year, all that grass you see to the right of me is actually volunteer barley from when I had barley growing there last year. we'll just consider it a cover crop. So it's still amazing that I do this whole thing pretty much by hand, except for the rototilling of the compost in. You can do it by hand, but it mixes it so much even. So this is about a 50-foot long bed. And what's it taking? About 10-15 minutes to do this, the one side. Another way you could do this is spread the compost and do this broad forking, and then you can plant right in that. And that's also another way to do it.
And how will you prepare the surface? You just add the compost on top?
I put it right on the top, and then I rake the piles out evenly. There'll be 6 wheelbarrows of compost in this bed.
And you won't step on it again?
I will not step on this, except for the rototilling, and other than that, no more stepping on it.
And you won't rototill till when?
Well, I'm not going to plant this for 2 weeks. I probably won't rototill this for another week or so. And there is some theories about if you're spreading compost manure and then tilling it in, especially if you're using fresh manure, you need to let the ground sit for 2 weeks. But if you're using compost, you can at least let it sit overnight to settle everything down. So if we do get some rain, it will go all down those holes and down into the ground. So that's ready for compost. It's a little sticky down there at the bottom. One thing about using hand tools over a tiller is you can work soil that's wetter, whereas if it has to be relatively dry for a rototiller. Otherwise, this clay soil turns to clods. And then once I get that all tilled, you can see the bigger stakes I've pounded in the corners. That's for the hoses, so I can pull the hoses up the pathways. So wherever you see stakes, you'll see, once this is all in, it'll all be big stakes for the hoses.
Do you add any soil amendments like sulfur or anything like that?
I put sulfur in the fall and I let it break down all winter long. And the sulfur I use because I'm watering with a well that has high mineral content. If you put the sulfur in, the bacteria, the soil life, turns it into sulfuric acid, so they sort of balance each other out. And it's just a maintenance thing. You can still see it if you look. See all the little yellow pellets just getting dissolved here. That's the sulfur going into the ground. And the more moisture you have, the more it goes in. That's the only thing, that and compost. I don't even use cover crops to speak of. I do some, like that. All that up over there, all that green up there, that's a cover crop of acorn, which you would never use. But I had it because the acorn, I might have mentioned, has a hole on it that's really hard to get off. So I just planted it out there, and that's the cover crop this year. Go get it. Watch out. So I'll put one at the very end, like this. And then rub it there. We'll get one more. I shredded it, and it's been sitting all winter, and this is what I use. Also, a couple of shovelfuls in each of the compost piles you see that I've got made. It's the inoculant with the good bacteria and stuff in it. And it takes a lot of effort to make a lot of compost. Just all the years of reading and looking at things, and this is really the best stuff to have. Oh, here's a little tidbit. is if you're wheelbarrowing stuff, have the wheelbarrow pointed which way you're going to go when it's loaded. And I'm going that way and then the garden. I want to have it turned around. It's just a little thing, but it really helps because it's harder to turn it around when it's full than it is when it's empty. Little things you figure out. And I've talked to people, even dump truck drivers, they're always pointed when they're full the way they're going to go. So, here we are. So, and I'm going to take this right to there. And we're going to go right to the edge of the bed. Doesn't always come out evenly. That's what's nice about using the rototiller. It'll make this all even. It's too early for carrots. I got that little patch over there, but carrots don't like a hard frost. Once established, they can take some cold, but the seedlings don't want it. And the onions, say they're a 1/4 inch or smaller when they're small, they get a frost, I think it's like 29 degrees, which won't kill them, but they'll go to seed. It just sort of triggers something in their growth and you won't get an onion. You get a bunch of green onions with a seed head on it. Let me see. This has been turned twice. That's been turned 3 times. That's 4 times. And that's 5 times. So that one's got maybe 1 or 2 turnings and then it will be finished compost. Then I'll shred it and it'll look like this. And I pull these, one week I pull them that way, the next week I pull them this way. Just to get a good mix. And this is, I think my friends called it a potato fart. Now, don't ask me why it's called a potato fart. But anyways, it works really good for this. And I've had this tool for over 40 years. And you can see there's leaves there, hay, manure. That's a sunflower stalk there. And what you're doing with turning it, and there's different theories on everything, but you're getting air in it is the main thing, and mixing the different ingredients. Come and put your hand in here. Put your hand right there.
It's nice.
Nice and warm. The only thing that wood chips, the big wood chips, those are really hard to get broken down. And if I see them in my compost pile, I throw them over there as mulch. They just take too long. The corn cobs actually will break down, and with the shredder, you won't see them anymore. And some people don't turn it all. Some people maybe turn their piles once every couple of weeks. I like doing it once a week. And once I tried doing it twice a week, and that was twice as much work for no gain. You know, you experiment, see what happens. A Scottish manure fork. In the late summer and early fall, the biggest problem I have with this is the toads really like this. They keep on getting toads. I don't hit them, but they're there. And maybe in a month, there'll be these big white grubs, and I'll show you another time. And the skunks really like to come in here and dig them up. There's a period of time when the skunks are out here.
Do you add moisture here?
It's good enough. After the second turning, I don't need any more moisture. So this is good. Since this is my front yard, I keep it clean. Make the compost pile convenient. Otherwise, you'll never do it. With the truck, This shovel's an old coal shovel. You know, you got snow shovels and you have the big aluminum stuff. Get one with steel and it will last. And I mean, it's worn out and stuff, but it really works. Nice quick workout. This is a spring-tined rake, and they eventually get real flimsy and break. I've had them break off right there, and so I'll show you what I do with them. I take the whole spring, and these are my planting markers, and they last forever. You get a new rake, and you get a post for the garden. Nothing ever goes to waste. My morning project was I actually made a brand new compost pile. So that just got made. The pile that was there got shredded and it's already tilled in the ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what's left of that pile right here. Nice. So these 3 beds are completely planted now. And this is, there's actually five types of onions, 3 in this row and 2 on the top. And then the poppies, you can almost, I'm gonna just point it out, this green, the poppies, these got planted 3 weeks ago here. And this is the Hungarian blue bread poppies for poppy seeds. There.
To put in baked goods?
Baked goods, yes. And then that's carrots. And I don't write anything down, I just memorize. So that's Chantenay's, Danvers, French Theocene, and the top is Nantes.
Just to repeat from what we've done last time, you'll mound it, put compost.
Yeah.
Like here, you're gonna put compost.
I will put, this will be the next bed of carrots. Okay. And the reason why I went and tilled it was because it had all this green grass, the barley in that was from last year, and I wanted to use that as a cover crop. So it's in there breaking down. And then when I'm ready to plant this, I'll put compost in and till that in. You can see all the spring garlic. That's a spring planted garlic called Silver Rose. And it comes up really fast and really likes to grow. Yeah.
And we were here for the plant, not the planting of this, but the prepping.
The prepping of it, yes. And it's been cool enough, like this is carrots and they're not up yet. It was also planted 3 weeks, so they're gonna pop now.
Carrots are your favorite thing to grow?
It's, I'm happen to be really good and I can sell every last one of them.
Oh, nice.
You know.
So it's a good source of income.
Yeah, yeah. But the peas are just coming up here. Now, just starting. Took 3 weeks. So you know, I know people like to plant early, and I just tried it, knowing that, you know, I could have planted these a week or so later and not have to water them as much. And those are snow peas, and then these are snap peas, and they're all coming up now. Yeah. And this is my catch-all bed, and we have right in the front there, we have some parsley planted and some celery, all from seed. And then I'll plant later on kale, there'll be more carrots in there, you know, all that kind of stuff. Here we have asparagus. This stuff is really taking off now and stuff. And there's, some are slow. I have no idea where this guy is. See, but it's all right. But these were all volunteer wild asparagus that I dug the crowns up and planted them. I didn't buy these crowns. Anyways, they're doing really well. And then I am hand digging all of the grass out. So you can see I've done about half. It's a tedious process. Yeah.
Oh, I know. After broad forking my garden.
This guy's about ready to bloom. That's a prune, it's a French prune plum. These are really, really good. So I've watered the asparagus, I've watered the raspberries.
Raspberries you just keep every year?
Yeah.
And they're primocanes, so you just...
Primocanes, so you cut them to the ground in the fall or the spring whenever you get to it. And I've edged the beds and watered, and they're really taking off now. And
these beds about 36 inches?
The beds?
Yeah.
4 feet.
4 feet?
Yeah, I pretty much work only with 4 feet.
Okay. And what's the difference between just you just work one end and then come around the other? for your 4-foot beds?
4-foot beds. If you were to make one like that, what you would do is you'd go right down the middle, okay, and then you would work from the middle back out to the edge.
Okay.
That's how you do that. And then and you're sort of hilling it up, and while you're doing that, you're not walking on the bed, and so you actually have a perfectly tilled bed when you're finished. Okay. And all you got to do is mix in compost or whatever fertilizers you want to.
This is all one variety of raspberry?
That's all, just Prima Canes. There's so much, and it's better, you know, unless you really got to have raspberries in the spring, raspberries in the fall. This is more not till August, but it goes clear till frost.
And with these ones, do you till?
No, just dig the grass out in the springtime. That's it. This is where I wanted to plant the Arabian blue barley. We got the Finocchio got planted. Was this here last time?
Yep. You just had put it in.
Just had put it. We got the onions, and you can see there's always happens, but there's always a few that don't make it. That one there, this one I think still will. This one's rotten. But there's 22 onions there, looking pretty good. And the beets are coming up. That's Detroit dark red, coming along really good. And these are red core chantenays. And this is a Celorac Magdalena that a friend wanted me to grow out for him, and they have not grown at all. So we'll see.
That's a type of beet?
It's Celorac is a type of celery.
Interesting.
The root, it's grown for that bulb root mainly for soups. And then that's all sweet peas. They have not germinated yet, but they will. This whole patch is going to be potatoes, and that outside row is all planted in early potatoes. Just for the fun of it, we had a red Norland and a Yukon Gold, and alternated them.
Oh, interesting.
So it's be red, gold, so you don't know what you're going to get till you. And these just got planted yesterday.
And can you talk about how you plant potatoes? Do you cut them up, the spuds?
It depends on the size. If they're, you know, about this size, no. Up here, I might cut it in half. But what you want is 2 eyes per seed potato. So that's what you're looking. And you cut them at least the night before you're going to plant them. These got cut the morning before I got to plant. And that's the heel off that skin or the inside, because if it goes in really wet, and it can rot. So you want to, you know, and you know I always tell people, buy the medium size if you can. If you know, go to the store and they have them bulk, buy the medium ones, because the really big ones, they're selling it by the pound, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you buy the medium sized ones, you're getting more per pound because the big ones have the same number of eyes as that medium size. So why not?
Yeah, get the smaller ones, yeah.
Get baseball sized ones, and you're actually going to get more.
And so what is the ratio of seed potatoes to production?
I think it's 1 pound of seed potato will give you 10 pounds of eating potatoes.
I see, okay.
So, yes, I think that's what it is.
And then how many, like for example, like this row, how far is it and how many potatoes did you put? Because
I'm not worried about getting big potatoes on the new potatoes. They were planted every 12 inches.
Okay.
On those long rows, they're 50-foot rows, and I will plant them every 16 inches.
Okay.
And I actually take a ruler out here, a yardstick, and I measure out every 16 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you have furrows and then you have little irrigation canals.
Yeah. What you do if you got a row like this, so here's the edge of the bed, right? Here's the edge of the bed. You don't make 16 inches in, you measure 8 inches in, and then 16 inches. What I do, because I have these beds are on an angle, I measure out one bed and get it ready, mark it all out, and then I don't have to measure more because everything is staggered off of that one bed.
I see.
Yeah, so every bed will be slightly staggered.
Okay.
So I only have to measure the one bed or one row.
And these are early potatoes or just?
That's early potatoes. These will all be for fall crop. Yeah.
What's the difference between an early potato and a fall crop? Like just when they're ready?
Well, there actually is different seasons. There actually is an early potato, mid-season, and a late season. The late season potatoes are going to be your best stores. But what I do is I get what I like to eat, and the only one that I know that I have that's a late season is the German Butterball.
I see.
Okay, but you can plant them later. And if you really want a fall crop, I wouldn't plant till June. If you can save your seed potato till late May, June, and you'll have a good crop in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you let them cure in the ground?
I will, in September, I'll stop watering them and let them cure in the ground, yes. Because if you keep on watering them, they get soggy, they could rot. It's actually sort of a funny thing, they actually do better with less water than more water.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Everything's pretty planned out. This area is going to be, and I already got it marked, is going to be tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, and zucchini. And I don't know how I'm going to plant it yet, but it's there and ready.
And what's cool is you pretty much don't do anything from starts. It's all seed in the ground, right?
Though I will have tomato plants.
Okay.
Yes, I got 2 friends getting me a couple of that, but otherwise everything else is seed.
Okay.
Seed in the ground. Yeah. Yep. And there's your garlic's looking pretty good. And I've watered this once. And then this might look flat, but this one bed area is going to be dry beans, and this one over here will be dry beans, and that other area will be corn. Even though it has some celery plants and some kale, it's all coming out.
And have you tried Three Sisters? Has that worked for you? Have you ever tried it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. People really like the Three Sisters.
Yeah.
And the Three Sisters, if I remember seeing a photograph of a place, and those were so much spaced that you could walk between it. And everybody here wants to not give them the space. You need to have give them more space. And then what you do, if you're going to do the beans in with that, the corn and the squash can be planted at the same time, but you're going to let those beans run, and you're going to want them to run up the corn. You got to plant them 2 weeks later than the corn. Otherwise, they all come up at the same time, and there's nothing for the beans to run on if they're climbers.
Gotcha. And when do you start planting corn around here?
So I just wrote that down on my list. The minimum soil temperature is 65 degrees.
Okay.
That's the minimum.
How far down 65 degrees?
Well, you're going to plant them an inch or 2 down, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're not getting too far from that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it till mid-May.
Okay.
Just because of frost.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyways, but I wanted to show you what I got the stakes here, and we're going to plant Arabian blue barley in this area right here. People do straight lines. I got a stick there and a stick there, and I just drag my foot. It works just fine. It's much easier than bringing string along with you. So I'll get the Arabian blue barley.
What do you use the barley for?
Soups, put in my crack grain cereal. And sometimes I just cook it whole like this and eat it. I don't have rice in the house because I have too much other grain. And it's rather chewy. And barley, or your small grains, you don't plant them really thick. You get better production by giving them a little bit of space, and they put out tillers. And so one seed, instead of making 1 head of grain, will make 4 if you give them the proper spacing. I mean, you can plant it thick, and yes, you will get a crop. Just doing the edges, and then I'll do a little bit down the middle. And then after this is planted and watered, I'm going to water it, I will have to put bird netting over the entire space so the birds don't eat the grains coming up. And I'm going to put this jar of grain inside the garden room. You don't want your seed to get hot. And that's, if I left this out here, this would be 100-something degrees really fast. We can take a quick look. Seed stuff. Somebody wanted me, I think this is a new one. This is Orca, the dry bean. And somebody else brought me Cherokee Trail of Tears. That's a pole bean. And this, somebody gave me this. That's a Hopi corn. I'm technically going to be growing popcorn out, but this one's I'll definitely grow next year. I have so much corn in the house, I really don't need much extra. I got this cultivator, and this is what I'm going to cultivate to plant the seed. You can do a rototiller lightly, but this works just fine. And yes. When I started this garden, I wouldn't have been able to do this. This is 30-something years of working. Another thing with these old small grains, they don't want really fertile soil. Good soil, yes, but really fertile soil. They grow really tall and then they fall over. It's called lodging. And it makes it really difficult to harvest. It can be done, but... And this Arabian blue barley came from the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, and they were doing grain trials. And they sent me, I think, 3 different types. The Burbank barley, and the Arabian blue, and there was another one, which I do not recall. But the problem with those little samples, in my situation, it's 100 seeds. Sounds like a lot, and it's nothing to a group of birds. You know, so you really have to protect them. I think in California they called it a potato fork. Don't ask me why, but that guy. Yeah, this guy's. And that's what I turn all my compost with, and it works really good for what I do. Cultivating grain like that. And this is the Warren hoe, and this is going to make rows. And another reason why I'm starting downhill, when you irrigate, the soil erodes downhill. I pull everything uphill. So that's what I'm doing. And another thing I'm doing, that was left-handed, now I'm going to do it right-handed. It gives your body a break, back and forth. Now we'll do the next side.
So the next step is you put the burlap to protect?
I'm going to water this. And the burlap that you see around the garden was for frost protection. Okay. I threw it over the plants.
I see.
Yeah, barley's not going to have a problem. You know, it can handle that kind of cold.
What kind of bird netting do you use then?
I actually have rolls of bird netting. And it's, I think, about a 1/2 inch square.
Okay.
Plastic.
And is it raised above the ground?
No, it's laying right on the ground.
Okay.
What they're going to do is they're going to start scratching. The birds will start scratching. Well, this way they can't scratch. And they can peck if they see something sitting on top of the ground, but that's not very much.
I see. Okay.
But there's some. But I'm going to water this first, get it soaked.
And this case, you're going to flood.
Actually, the first watering, I'm going to use that sprinkler over there. Yeah, I'm going to actually use a sprinkler. And then after that, once the ground's completely wet, then I'll row irrigate.
Okay.
I mentioned planting some more seed potatoes.
Oh, nice. Okay,
So,
perfect.
I have them here. What is it now? It's the first week of May, so it'll be the third or fourth week of last week of May. But here we are. I'm going to set these here for now. Actually, even with the frost, if you look, there's apricots. This is the Afghani white apricot. They're up high, but they got thinned, which is good.
Nice.
Things, and the onions are all up. Everybody's pretty much up. This is a funny thing. You can see how thick they are. These are carrots.
Oh, wow.
And I actually, because they're so thick, I've been doing this with the seedlings and just
Thinning them out.
Thinning them out. I'm going to thin them out, the real thinning. And a friend planted these and I wasn't watching. Not that I don't plant them thick, but this is a little much.
And those are different varieties of sticks you got.
Yeah, well, all the sticks are different varieties. I've done everything except this little bit here.
Do you use your hoe to get rid of all the weeds?
No, I do it all by hand.
No hoeing?
No hoeing, not in this. The onions, I'll do it once. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I could hoe in those. There's space there.
The bindweed.
Yeah, and same with those are the poppies, Hungarian bluebread poppies, and there's enough room there. And I thinned those once, and I'm going to come back and thin a second time. And I'll thin them to 4 to 6 inches. A lot of thinning. So if you're afraid of thinning, don't plant so much seed.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Otherwise, but if you save your own seed and it doesn't cost you that much.
It doesn't cost me that much. The Swiss chard has been thinned once. We'll thin that again. And then we got the garlic. These carrots, not that you can barely see them, but this carrot is called rumba, and these have been thinned to about 1 inch. And they're a smaller carrot, a Nantes type, and
Some volunteer lettuce.
volunteer lettuce. That's a red salad bowl, red romaine over there. Peas are coming along. These are snow peas. The other ones down there, Amish snap. And again, that lettuce all has been thinned once, the lettuce and spinach. As it gets bigger, I'll take out every other one.
I see.
Yeah. And this is sort of exciting. Most people don't do this, but you can see down here, this is all celery coming up from seed. That whole line there, celery, there's celery there. And that whole side over there is celery coming up. This is called tango. I find interesting is that the celery came up faster than the parsley. Usually the other way around. As far as soil prep, that bed way up there needs to be dug up. Got the grass out of it. And I remember this bed, it's almost done. This bed is almost completely done. You can see the one walnut tree in there.
It's still hanging.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. The wheat back there?
That's rye. It really is taken off. Yeah, this is a rye. I think that it can get about this tall.
Whoa.
This is a different...
Do you put it in your bread?
I will put this in my bread and the cracked grain cereal. And you can see the difference between rye. It's a gray green, and there's wheat. And this is turkey red wheat. And if it gets a lot of water, it can get this tall. If it doesn't get much water, it stays about here. This will probably get up to about right in there.
And midsummer harvest?
July, August, yeah. Got apricots. Yeah. It's fun to see. Now, there's such a thing in this area called a June drop, where the fruit trees thin themselves to a certain degree. So I won't have that many that you know, but
Yeah.
that's okay. It's still way
Peach?
almond. Yeah, so we'll see. We got that's the pollinator over there. That's a Hall's hardy almond, and they're okay almonds. But this is one called Mission or Texas. This will be first year in a lot of years, because 2 years ago with that hard frost, obviously it almost died to the ground.
Raspberries coming up. Real good
Raspberries, yeah,
since last time.
yeah, it really warms up. The days are getting longer. They really start to take off. And I went through here once, or actually the second time, and weeded.
Okay.
There's some volunteer lettuce in there. We'll let it grow and eventually pick it and eat it. And if you notice, the celery's not there. The celery was there. Now it's over there. I moved it. This is that barley that I planted, what, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
And it came up in 6 days, Arabian blue barley. I watered it twice to get it up.
How do you deal with bindweed?
I hoe it off. These 2 blank areas here are going to be dry beans, and I think I'm going to have to rototill again. It's settled, you know, been rained on and sprinkled on from irrigating that, so I'll have to, and that's okay. That spot is where the corn is. Probably popcorn this year. Garlic's doing well.
You don't even have to plant lettuce. It just everywhere.
Well, once the seed's in the ground, it comes up all over the place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just free lettuce.
Yeah, there's a bunch of lettuce around that kale from last year. And there's cilantro. Just
Yeah, everywhere.
yeah. You know, but the seed crop stuff is all doing well. The beets are coming along here, and carrots. They all made it. The only one that's, as far as onions, I lost 2 onions. They didn't come out, and only 1 Finocchio, bulb fennel, didn't grow. This has taken me 3 years of trying to get them to store over winter. So finally got it. This celery was what I wintered over, and celery even at that size. I just did that last weekend, so you can see how well it's transplanted.
Whoa.
This is, again, Tango, the same that's coming up over there, only now I'm going to have my own seed.
So that's just going for seed crop.
Yeah, that's a seed crop. And then, if you recall, this had that celeriac in it. Well, none of it grew, and the guy that I was growing it for said pull it out because none of his grew either. So I came in here and planted red salad bowl lettuce for our seed crop right here. And that volunteer lettuce I will eat. You generally cut the potatoes up the night before. I did these yesterday morning, so a day and a half before, but feel it's solid. If you just cut these and plant them, they'll rot.
I see.
And so, you try to have 2 eyes on each one. And what I'm gonna do, that's a 4-foot yardstick. It works really good for measuring things out. These are only going to be planted 6 inches or 12 inches apart. So there's 1, and then there's 12, 24, 36, and 48. And you only have to measure 1 row because you stagger everything off, or at least I stagger everything off with that one measurement.
So these don't have to go that deep.
I will go a little bit deeper, but no, you know. I'm just marking right now. Then these are Yukon Golds here. These are the Red Norlands. Have you ever heard the term plant them so the eyes can see?
No.
You plant them up.
Oh, I see.
Because that way they'd have to do this. So you plant them so the eyes are up. Potato eyes. And these have been greening or chitting and stuff. These have been sitting out in not full light, but I like on my dining room table for over a month.
And it helps.
And they get those short things like that. The short sprouts, and they'll actually grow a bit more. How you said your sprouts were about a centimeter long?
Way less than that. Some just even had eyes, so it's just going to take a lot longer, you think, to come out?
It'll take a little bit longer to come up.
I planted mine deeper, unfortunately.
That's okay. You could also just dig a big long trench, set them in the bottom, put a little dirt on them.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
It's whatever works for you.
Feels like the most important step is just to get out there and start growing. You know, it's like
it is. That's what we just get out there. Eyes up. Yeah, we say that on the radio all the time about just get out there and start doing it. Because in one sense, I've never been to school. Just simply, I'm getting the dirt off the raft. This is about the only time that you're ever going to see me in the potato patch, except when it's time to dig them. And I'm going to hill the dirt up on some of these. These are early potatoes, so they're not going to get huge. It's just something, I won't even mulch these. I'm just going to dig them and eat them.
You'd mulch it with straw?
Straw, hay. When I got out there is I'll show you, is a hole by the compost area is probably 8 truckloads worth of leaves.
Oh, whoa.
And I'll use those for the main mulching. And then because leaves will blow with the wind, I put flakes of hay on the outside edges. So it gets a little messy with leaves when it's mulching time. The trick is the time when your storage is cold. So you want them to be harvested when your root cellar is cold.
I see.
So that's just something to work with. So what you can do, if it's not cold yet, say, and the plants have died even in October,
Yeah.
As long as you haven't watered them, you can leave them in the ground.
If you haven't.
If it's dry, you can just leave them in the ground. And they'll be fine. But if the ground's moist or you water, say, I stop watering my potatoes in mid-September. No more. Just let them dry out. And they're not going to grow that much more. And then if it rains, because everything's mulched, it'd have to rain a lot to get the moisture into the ground. Because there'll be, every time I mulch 2 different times, 6 inches deep, the mulch settles and the potatoes grow. So I will mulch a second time. This tool I'm using is actually from the landscaping, and this is what they would use when they're planting ground covers. And what I'm going to do, you see I've left these holes until the potatoes come up and out of here. I will leave those holes. I'll water it once, maybe twice. This is the front end that it grew out of that way. This was where it came from the plant. You want to cut this way and not that way, because that stops the flow of the juice, because the plant grew out this way. And these potatoes, again, are not for big, maybe at most baseball size. Those first ones were Yukon Golds, and these are Red Norlands. and that whole row, outside row, was the very early ones, and it's red Norlands and Yukon Gold every other one.
Okay.
Just for the fun of it. It's not any special reason. Just you get a nice mix.
Right. How many pounds do you think you get a year of potatoes?
Well, last year was 300 or 400 pounds, so I sold quite a few. I only keep for myself 50 pounds.
That's it?
Actually, what I do is I keep more than that because there's always rot.
Oh, gotcha.
There's always rot, and there's all of a sudden, oh, somebody wants potatoes.
I mean, it's such a versatile crop. Who doesn't like French fries, mashed potatoes?
Yeah, mashed potatoes, roasted potatoes. So when I turn on the water, I'll water every one of these holes. Settle it in, and might not water them for a week. So I wanted to show you this. You can see that these potatoes, they got frozen. And see, that's actually it. Now it's not going to kill the plant. It'll put up side shoots. But here's this one. So it's funny that these up here got a little frozen, and there's one that's perfectly okay, and right next to it, it's frozen. Look at that one's perfectly okay, and that one right there is frozen. You just, no rhyme or reason. That's going to be the next bed of carrots. I mentioned that I'll broad forage that. I've been digging this all out. It all looked like that. Grass. I hand turned this last fall just to help it get rid of it. I don't know why it's called quack grass. Maybe the ducks like it. I don't know. I just tried something here, and one year I just decided to turn the soil, and I never weeded it. So I turned the soil and tilled in the sod and grass the next spring, and it came right back. It's better just to take your time and dig it out. You can do it with a shovel. I just happen to have these. These are the Smith & Hawkins spading forks. They're extremely hardy. I think this one, I had this one that got it stamped 93. Made in England. I'll put flowers around the edge. I'm going to put potatoes in here too. And all this weeds, I'll go back in the compost. The soil life has very specific depths that lives at. And if you go to your soil more than 3 or 4 inches, you're burying your good stuff. That looks easy because I dug in there briefly to get the grass off the edges.
What are we going to be planting here?
Another bed of carrots. I'll have 5 beds of carrots all next to each other.
Is that your biggest cash crop?
Yeah. Then onions and garlic and potatoes. These beds, you can see they've been rototilled. In this area, the soil's really nice, and then once it dries out, it gets hard. If you got to till or do your soil work a long ways out of planting, better to do that than have to deal with hard clay soil. We're just going to open this up and you can look. This is the one I've had since 1978, 79.
Wow.
This, you can see, only saved the middle of the ear. And so this has already been, that hasn't. See, I will take those and then save the middle for seed. There's the multicolored.
Whoa.
Mandan Bride. You can see the differences there. Look at this. Even that one color. This, I'm going to grow this next year. That's a Hopi corn from Hopi land.
Whoa.
And it's got a lot of really nice colors in it.
What's flint corn for?
That's all your corn, practically all your corn you're getting in the stores as a flint. It's actually most flavorful. The flour corns are a little softer and you toast those. These you don't toast.
Okay.
Yeah, you just grind. Watch. You start at the bottom. 2, 3, 4, 5, 35, 36, 37. Let's just say 35. There, it's a little bit more. And there's 8-row corn, there's 12-row corn, there's 16-row corn, and then popcorn is even more.
Oh, whoa.
So you count the rows. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. This is probably a 12. So 12.
12 by 30?
Yeah, 12 by 30 is what?
Over 300.
There's over 300 right here.
Wow. My wife doesn't think I'm going to grow good corn. She's like, I've never seen anyone grow good corn. I'm like, no, we're going to do it. It's going to happen.
I don't know where that comes from.
We've grown it in our garden, and we'll put a few, and that's probably the problem.
You've got to have, a block of plants.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, because it's wind pollinated. The colorful one is the Mandan bride. They were married to the corn.
And what's the red one?
Hopi pink.
Hopi pink. All right, so we're at the end of May coming up here.
Yeah, it's May 25th. That's what it is. So as you can look there, I've thinned those onions, and then I've thinned those poppies there. This bed of carrots has all been thinned. I'm going to show you something real quick. This is what I'm doing, a rough thinning. I started doing a rough thinning, and what I'm doing is just taking the edge of the row of carrots and doing this where it's thick, and just pulling this out, and then I'll let it grow for another week before I come back in and thin these. If I let these get too big, they get really leggy. So I started doing this, and it's worked out really pretty good. And it doesn't take too long to do. And this bed is the third bed of carrots. It got planted last Saturday, a week ago. So I still got 2 more beds to go. This is all the early stuff coming along. That's the rumba carrots, and that's strictly an early crop, and it's a type of Nantes. The seed is not available, from what I understand, anymore commercially, because if you let this carrot get big, it gets a big crack down the side. So we just use it as an early carrot. I made a big salad for lunch today. What I'm doing with that asparagus, the asparagus I've harvested for more than 6 weeks, and now I'm just going to let those go and rejuvenate the crowns, rootstock for next year. So that's what this all is. Some people see that and they look at it as a waste, but it actually, if I harvested it all, I won't have anything next year. So that's what that is. And I wanted to show you, whitefly has showed up on the grapes. For some reason, they really like the hem rods. But see, I went in here this morning and sprayed neem oil on the underside of these leaves. And so, if you get them early, there's no more flies flying right now. I'm not seeing any. We got this white is diatomaceous earth, and it takes care of the small crawly, mainly sow bugs, because they really like the zinnias that are just coming up. Roly-polies, yeah. And so that's just a prevention. I'll never get rid of them, but this way I'll get my zinnias too.
Oh, yeah, nice. So these are going to be all flower bed?
This is 3 rows of zinnias in here. Of course, this is the turkey red wheat.
It's a hard wheat?
It's a hard wheat, yeah. But this is a rye, and that's over 6 feet tall. And it's a specific kind. This is an old variety. You would not grow this for commercial with a combine and stuff. It's too big. but this is fine for, and I put these string in here, posts and strings in a windstorm because the wind will knock this over. So that's what that is.
This would be just great to grow for even like livestock.
Yeah,
So much biomass.
I've seen this where they planted it in the fall, because that's what you do, plant this in the fall, and then in early spring, when it's 6 to 12 inches tall, they put the cattle out for fresh food.
A ton of pear, you gonna thin these out?
I will thin those pears. They're not quite, well, there's what's called a June drop. I'll show you. Here, you would go, actually, see, that's one cluster. And
So
you
wanna
take,
keep like 2 per cluster?
no, one.
Oh wow.
So that's what's going to be left. And you take if they came right out the middle, that's the one you leave. Other than that, you leave the big ones, the biggest one.
Are you gonna get with a ladder up there, or just?
I will get up there with a ladder. It takes a lot of work. If you look at any of the orchards, the organic orchards, they got a crew up there. And that's what they're doing. But they're not doing pears yet, they're doing peaches.
I see.
You do the peaches and then the pears.
If you don't do that, you get tiny fruit.
You get tiny fruit, but what the real problem is, you don't get any fruit the next year.
Oh.
It turns into a every other year.
I see.
So by thinning, you get bigger fruit, and if you didn't thin, the plant would spend all its energy to make and ripen fruit, and not fruiting spurs for next year. So that's why you have to thin.
Gotcha.
You know, unless you want fruit every other year, you got to break. And I've heard of people doing that too. But I'd rather have some fresh fruit.
You got 2 trees.
Yeah.
You know, you
You
switch
can
them, alternate them.
Yeah, you definitely could. So, and I do pears, peaches, and apples. That's what I thin. I don't thin the plums and I don't thin the apricots. They do it themselves. This is a farrow plum. This is a pollinator for this plum. There's another plum up there. It's also the pollinator for the Santa Rosa plum. And the Santa Rosa plum, I have a young one over there. Right now, the one I had died. Probably going to be helped with this. These are just 2 new ones. That's the Italian prune plum.
Nice.
And this is the elephant heart plum. So I wouldn't be surprised that that one pollinates the elephant heart too. More pears, and I don't think I have the right pollinator. This needs a specific type of pollinator, so it's not going to be
as fruitful.
Yeah, as fruitful. But I get pears off of it. And there's what's called the June drop, and you can tell. See how big this one is here? Can you see how big that one is there? And then these are just going to drop right off. They're not even going to stay. But that big, because you can see it. They're not as vibrant. Yeah. And the raspberries are coming along. Again, will start blooming in late July, early August, and go clear till fall and frost. That's the Arabian blue barley. It's growing really good. And I started planting this morning. These are cranberry beans. Where those sticks are Montezuma red beans. Garlic's doing really well. These few tomato plants don't really like it cold, but they're in there and they'll be fine. And then the early potatoes, and then the late variety potatoes.
Those are just starting to come up, the ones we planted last time.
That was the first early potatoes. These are early potatoes when you were here last. And then the rest is planted in the late harvest potatoes.
I see. And for that trellis, it looks great. Is you just use field fence?
Yep. I think they're 3 foot circumference.
Each one, 3 feet?
Yep.
This is a great way, and this is how you grow your beans?
Peas on this. And those poles that I've got staked in, I'm going to put pole beans on them.
Okay.
And
how do you stake tomatoes? What's your favorite?
I use tomato wired cages similar to this, but a little bit bigger. and I pound stakes in on each of them. Then I'll take this kind of sisal string to hold it onto the stakes.
I see.
So it doesn't blow over and stuff. And I do not prune my tomatoes. You can prune the tomatoes if you want. I don't. Gotcha. You know, and there's a technique to it, and some people swear by it, and then other people don't. And I don't. It's just one more thing
To add to.
I'm thankful I get what I get, and it's as simple as that. Yeah. And then this is the celery for seed, right here. That's celery, and then
These you overwintered over
I overwintered those. Yes.
over the
Yep. And then this is red salad bowl lettuce, and I'll thin this again, and but this will be for seed also.
some volunteer parsley or cilantro.
Cilantro. And then here's the red core chantenaise, carrots. This is their second year, they're biennial.
Because carrots don't produce seeds.
Everything here except for the lettuce is a biennial. And the first year is plant growth, the second year is reproduction.
I see.
Yeah. And so you got Detroit dark red. Let's see, those carrots and these beets were in the storage trench. The onions were just in a basket in that garden room. And the finocchio, the bulb fennel, I put in buckets of sand and had that in there and kept them moist that way.
And so this, when it was a beet, right? It would have been a beet. You had it, just the beet itself?
Yep.
Store? Okay.
Yeah.
The whole thing is don't eat the beet.
Yeah.
Put the beet back in.
And what you do in the fall is you harvest a bunch and you get the right size and shape and color. And that's what you store. That's New York early onions. And the onions don't produce so much. So you can see these different stalks that have come up. Each one has one head, one flower head. So I actually have counted, I'll have 52 flower heads in here of onions.
And the same thing, like you were saying, this is a 2-year process.
It's a 2-year process, yeah. So again, you take the nicest ones, and when I harvest them, the ones with the best shape and color, I set them in a different basket. Because if I don't, they're gonna get eaten. And they're labeled for seed. You know, it's just the way it is. And you know, there's a few other people that come through here, oh, onions. So, you know, if I don't label them, they'll get taken. So these are a type of cranberry bean. And I haven't grown them for about 8 years. At least that was the date, was 2016.
Wow.
I'm planting these a little thicker just because they are a little bit older.
So how many inches apart do you plant your beans?
Generally 4 to 6. These are, like I said, a little bit closer.
And then per row, a foot apart?
The rows are 12 inches apart, yeah. And as I'm planting, if you know, I use my tip of my shoe as where the last one got planted. There's these little things just to keep track of where you're at. And there's another thing, if you're just planting a few beans, bush beans, you can see the eye on here. See that eye? If you plant that eye down, that's where the root comes out, and all the bean has to do is lift it up. But if it's upside down, it has to go like this. The root has to go like this and then pick the whole thing up. I'm doing way too much to worry about putting the eyes down. And I don't have a problem. But if you have really heavy clay soils, it definitely is beneficial. I was planting beans for somebody the other day, and they didn't know that. And so I did it for them. We'll see how they do. And I try not to plant too close to the edge because I edge it with a weed whacker. I'll finish this and we can get you started on popcorn because it's right here. That's the popcorn.
What's it called? Jubilee popcorn?
Jubilee. It was originally Japanese white holus, but the red showed up. And so I save about 1/3 red, 2/3 white. And it's really a nice popcorn. I've already marked out all these little holes there. I put about 3 3 or 4 in each little hole, and I'll thin to one. But the little metal stakes, if you can see those are our sunflowers. It's a good companion plant, and they actually race. The sunflowers and corn actually race. It's pretty amazing to watch them grow, and the sunflowers always win. So wherever you see those wire, there's only that row and this row that has the sunflowers in it. 3 to 4. You don't have to make any effort to do red. There should be over 200.
What's the spacing? 12 feet apart?
The rows are 16 and the plants are 16 in the row. And everything's staggered. The first time, I know this is all row irrigated, but the first irrigation I'll actually use a sprinkler because it gets evenly wet. And if I don't cover it quick enough, the birds are going to come in here. They're watching. But I just made another compost pile, the one in the middle there. Did that this morning. Takes about 2 hours to make a compost pile. And yesterday, because it was so wet, I could go down and shovel the manure. I could get into that manure pile. I was still spun a little bit, but I made it. And that's all the shredded compost, finished compost that's left. Everything's growing like mad, including the grasshoppers. It's that time of year. So I went and weeded these onions and top dressed it with compost. They'll probably get one more good weeding and then they're done. And that purple flowers, the Hungarian blue bread, poppy seed. They're just now coming open. This is what you see in your breads and pastries and stuff, is this type of poppy. Hungarian blue bread poppy seed. And it's related to the opium poppy. So you got all 5 beds now of carrots. This is the first one. Second one, I've been weeding so you can see where I weeded, and then it started raining. So I'll get to it. This one is the third one. The fourth one is needs to be thinned. And again, I started, but we had started getting rain. Initially, that purslane can be pretty, it would overgrow the carrots because they're so small. And you can see where I started thinning over there, and I was just pulling them and leaving them. And then this is the 5th bed of carrots, which got planted like last Sunday. And so I'm pretty much all planted out. So, and the peas, these are snow peas. You can just eat away.
Delicious.
Yeah, they're really good. And then what this will be, when these are all out, I mean, these peas will be out and the garlic will be out. Who knows when I'll get, those are early carrots, but I'll totally replant this by the first week of August.
With
Lettuce, spinach, daikons, beets, those kind of things. And that end down there, that's Swiss chard. And at the other end is Sutherland kale, which will stay there the whole time. Actually, the Sutherland kale eventually gets, in the fall, gets an aphid. And by then, the fall kale is kicked in. And I haven't planted it yet, but I'm going to plant it soon.
And this is celery here.
Parsley, celery from seed right in the ground. That's a tough one to do. I don't recommend it to anybody to get celery to come up from seed in the garden.
What's the best way for celery?
Started in little pots, little trays and stuff, yeah. It's just very tedious. This is going to be the fall kale here. And then the white stuff is diatomaceous earth, and it's for the flea beetles eating the cabbage seedlings. And that's what that is. There.
So just toss diatomaceous earth around.
Yeah. Diatomaceous earth is fossilized diatoms, and diatoms are plankton, but it's fossilized, and they had little shells, and those shells are really sharp, and so it can go through the exoskeleton, and where the insects breathe, it goes in through there and cuts them up that way.
Wow.
And I also sprayed with beneficial nematodes, which will go after the eggs and larvae of the flea beetle in the ground. And so I'm hitting it 2 ways. And in between these, I have 3 varieties of cabbage. And in between them, I left enough space. So over there, there's some lettuce planted. You can see the green onions, the shallot type things. And then I planted some finocchio right here. And then I'll do this space with the same thing, you know, either finocchio or lettuce and stuff. And then I got another space there. And this is actually going to be carrots again. One last planting of carrots. And I'm going to be planting 3 varieties of carrots there. And 2 of them will be for a seed crop next year. One called Rumba and one called Italian Giant Red. And I'll have to find another garden somewhere to plant them. One here, one someplace else, because they will cross.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kohlrabi, going to be planted here mid-July. And then you can see basil from seed just coming up. Or not coming up, but it's really starting to grow now, the basil. You know, so many people spend a lot of time growing basil from seed in pots, but it's just as easy right here.
Okay.
It's just a little bit behind, but when your tomatoes are ready, that's ready. That's work. And this is all the winter squash. And you can see the winter squash and nasturtiums, winter squash and nasturtiums. Those potatoes in there are all volunteers from last year. So I will dig those up at some point to eat. So let's see, what varieties do we have here? Those 2 at that end are Marina de Chioggia, and they'll get about this big. They'll get 20-something pounds. They're really good. And then the next 3 are Marigold, which is an orange squash. Lots of people think it's a pumpkin. They're about this big. And then these are Hokkaido's, really nice orange flesh. It's really a good squash. And I've tied the grapes up twice now. You know, yes, you got a trellis, but they'll move all over the place, so you have to train them a little bit. And I did that yesterday. They've tied themselves on with their tendrils. There's no reason, you know, see how this guy's already on there. There's no reason for me to see how the tendrils tied on there. I don't need to tie those grapes up. It's the ones that fall over into the pathway. Anyway, I wanted to show you, I mentioned to you about the small grains. It's called lodging. You can see this is where it's supposed to be, and this is what happens with the heavy rains and wind. That rye was 7 feet tall. Wow. And it's not, well, it's laying sideways. You can still harvest this when it's time. It's just much more of a hassle.
It's almost there though.
Yeah. No more water on my part anyways.
So this is the wheat crop.
Yeah, this is turkey red. And you know, I have plenty. And this year with this rye, this is only the 2nd year that I've planted this. So this is all the seed I had. And next year I'll have a lot of seed. I have 2 or 3 gallons out of here. Clean grain, yeah. I think it's this type of rye in Europe that they use for thatching roofs because it's so tall.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It is a grasshopper year, and I sprayed these comfrey this morning, but the grasshoppers seem to be congregating on some of these comfrey plants. So I'm leaving them as sort of a trap crop so that the grasshoppers are here.
We got to talk about grasshoppers. You got some sprays?
Sprays, yeah. Well, I've actually sprayed twice today, but it's a gallon of water, and it's 2 tablespoons sugar, 2 tablespoons molasses, and 4 tablespoons of hydrogen peroxide. You spray that on, and the instructions was that in the evening, it dries on the plant, and then they eat it the next day. And the molasses and sugar are attractants, but they can't digest carbohydrates, so that kills them. And then the peroxide, they don't like that either. It really messes them up, so they're gone. And these potatoes I've hilled up. I took the dirt from the center of the row and hilled it up around them, because potatoes, as they grow up, they send out the shoots for the new potatoes, and they're actually above the seed. And if you don't hill them up or mulch them, they get sunlight and they turn green. And you can't eat it. You have to peel the green off, let's put it that way. So this is why you hill potatoes and stuff. So this is, I just harvested or thinned and weeded right around the amaranth. I'll thin this one more time, like that one, and that one will be left, and I'll take this one. So they're about 12 inches, and they'll get about this tall, and it's too muddy to hoe the weeds. And this kind of amaranth, when they're a little bigger, that's really good to eat. It's really good flavor and really good for you. And you know, we'll see. I'll probably get about four gallons of seed once it's all done and cleaned. So this is all popcorn from the last time you were here. Popcorn, the dry beans, and then this again, this Arabian blue barley, that's a hard rain. And this, I don't even know if I'm gonna water it again. Maybe one more time, and then I'll just let it dry out.
And what's it called when it gets wet like this?
Lodging.
Lodging.
Yeah, when it falls over like this. So more beans. Those were Anasazes there, and the bottom half is black Brazilian black beans. And then these are cranberry beans, and the bottom half is Montezuma Reds, which is a red chili bean. And then of course we have the garlic.
It's almost ready.
Yeah, I actually dug some out. And so what you're looking for, these aren't quite ready, but see this, there's one leaf dried up, two leaves dries up. When this one dries up, that's three. When the fourth one's dried up, it's ready to harvest. So you can harvest this. This is, that's the soft neck, that's Inchalium. This is turkey red. And this variety is the one I harvested just for the fun of it the other day. And so you got one, two, the third one's drying out. It's amazing. Now I would do this with a spade and fork, but to do the whole thing, but we're just doing one out of here. This one's called Catabora. It's a new one that a friend gave me the seed for. See how wet it is, but you want this dried out. So yeah, one, two, and this is still edible. And what you'll notice when you, well, you won't notice until you open it up, is, you know, on a regular garlic, when you clean the individual cloves, there's that wrapper around it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not on here yet because it isn't dried out.
Oh.
So there's that extra layer. It'll peel really good. And then when you go to cut it, you can notice that there's just another skin on there. That's that other layer. That one's called Catabora. That's a hardneck. It's the first time I've grown it, and it's ripening the first. You know, and this all got planted last fall. Tomatoes, and I'm not a huge tomato fan, but I like them dried. That's a Chadwick cherry tomato, and then there's an Amish paste. I think that's a Russian variety. And then you can see the pole beans and all those little stakes. My friend from Gunnison's coming down, and she loves to tie the string up. So we tie the string to the stakes up to the top of the pole, and that's our pole beans. This row you can see is the biggest. That's early potatoes. And then I think you were here, we filmed planting these early potatoes, the second stage. And then all the rest are for fall harvest. And I just finished mulching those the other day. Let's dig up one of those early potatoes. So this is the early ones we probably planted a week or so after Good Friday this year, whenever Good Friday was. I don't keep track of those things. So we'll just see. This is, every year I check to see if they're ready. Nope. A bunch of small ones, but no big ones. Still good to eat. These still got 2 weeks out yet though, to get sized up. But I'll start to harvest these in July someplace. I'm going to save these. I'm not going to let these go to waste. I do that every year, just one plant, just to see where they're at.
And you knew this is an early variety?
I planted it for an early variety. Okay. It's Red Norlands, and these are Yukon Golds. If you can take a look, you can see the darker leaf is a red compared to the lighter green. The lighter green is a Yukon Gold. The Yukon Golds have white flowers. Those over there, those volunteers with the squash, they have white flowers. Those are German butterballs. So they'll all, according to their color, will have a little bit different flower color. Is it the 21st?
I think so.
Yeah, September 21st. 2024, the equinox. And so I'm busy all doing this cleanup. So this is all compost already made. And this is 1 week old. That's like 4 or 5 weeks old over there. And that one's probably 3 weeks old there. And those, I'll eventually get these all shredded and they'll look like this pile by the end of the season. What I got going over here is this is where I'm going to store all the leaves for next year. And those leaves were actually left over from last year. So, and then I'm not going to build this kind of pile anymore. I'm going to store everything in here for next year. And so I'm layering it is what I'm doing. And I found some wood shavings, so I'm putting those in there. This is going to sit all winter. And during the winter, I actually throw all my gray water from the kitchen sink on this. So this will compost all winter long. And this whole thing will be filled up and be about 4 feet tall. And as it decomposes, it'll only be down about here by the springtime. Wow. And I won't do anything except fill stuff on it. Gotcha. You know, no turning, no nothing. And what was really interesting to see that pile of leaves back here, this just happened, 30 minutes ago. And I actually pulled out 5 full-size toads already ready for winter. Wow. And I put them over here because here's some more leaves. Watch, just so you can see the size of these toads. And I got 5 of them out of there. Wow. There you go, back in the safety of the dark. But they were actually buried, had dug holes in the dirt underneath the leaves. Wow. And so that's where they're going to stay. I'm not going to touch this till next year. So they got a good winter home. And here we are for the winter. All the onions are harvested, turned over. This was, if you recall, this is where the poppies were and the potato onions. And I pulled them out, and this is a fall planting of spinach. And I'll show you. This spinach is called Northern Winter, or Giant Winter, excuse me. You can see the size of that leaf. I've been selling this at Farm Runners. And then this was the first bed of carrots. And I had enough time, I planted buckwheat. I cut the buckwheat down yesterday, and this will be all hand turned and look like the rest of it. And this bed was all early greens and stuff like that, and peas. I turned around, tilted it all back in, and we have fall beets. You have daikons, three different plantings, 4 different plantings of daikons. And because I got some more lettuce there. And the Swiss chard and the kale at both ends were planted in the spring. So they're still going. Wow. They're going good.
These are raging, and then these are the carrots I remember last time we were here. They were just barely planting them.
Yeah. That's the 3rd bed. You got 4th, 5th, and then there's a small patch up there. And 2 of those varieties, the rumba and the Italian red, on that last little patch there are going to be for seed for next year. So I'll store those and plant them out next year. And I have to plant them in 2 different gardens because they will cross. So I still got 1,000 pounds in here or so. Wow. Yeah.
Can you sell these?
Yeah. And they did a funny thing this year. They got some mildew right there, that white. And so one of the things you can do is spray sulfur. There's a type of sulfur that's for that. And then I heard that you can spray milk, just regular milk. The trick with milk is you have to do it on a sunny day. For some reason, the sunlight with the milk. So I do it first thing in the morning on the sunny day. And I did that 2 or 3 times. And then I just bought some product that's mainly enzymes of some sort. And we spray, and that has to be in warm water, sprayed in the evening because it's low light. So anyways, I've tried all those, and it's definitely this last spraying seems to have knocked that mildew down. And you know, the carrots are sized, but if it's mildew like that, it's going to mess up the sweet flavor. That's what all it's really going to do. Daikons, and this is the fall curly kale, and I'll eat this clear into December right here. I won't have to take it in or anything. And then we got our fall cabbage. These got a little bit of worms, but you can see they're starting to, this is late flat Dutch, and it can get large. This year they're not going to get large. And here's Finocchio, bulb fennel, and this stuff is a cool weather crop. Most people think, I personally thought in the beginning, oh, it's from Italy and it's from the Mediterranean, warm, but it's actually a cool weather crop. So this is a fall, spring, and early summer for them. Winter, but it's not a, so anyways, it does better now. We'll see what I did, but I took the red cabbage out of here because these two weren't quite ready, but they were solid, and when they get too much water this time of year, they split open and you can't store them. So I actually took them out, and they're in the storage buckets behind the garden room over there, and I'll show you what that looks like.
And you're going for seed?
No, they're for eating.
Okay.
No, I don't need any cabbage seed right now. In a year or two. Danish ballhead. These still got a month to go, so we'll be fine. What else we got here? Oh, kohlrabi. This is a purple kohlrabi, azure, I think it's what it's called. And this is for winter storage. These store really well. Roots and all. Pull them up, trim the leaves off, and you put them right in there with the carrots and beets and stuff, and they'll store right in there. Does really good. But the best flavor is after frost. You recall the German Lutz beet? Well, here that is. And there we go. That's doing well. That is doing really well. The basil's almost done. And this is cilantro / coriander that I'm going to save for seed. And winter squash, we're doing well. But you can see the size of those guys. They're not ready. Got to wait for a frost. Again, nasturtiums, but here we got, that's Hokkaido, and then we have the Morgolds, the bright orange. Lots of times people think that they're pumpkins, but that's actually not a pumpkin, that's actually a Morgold squash. Really hard, thick rind, 1/8 of an inch or so, and you got to take a knife and pound it in to break it apart.
Wow.
Yeah, but they're really good, really, and they store well. So let's see, all the grapes have been harvested by me or the birds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is what happens. The birds really like, and you can see what's left. It's just this, this was a Suffolk Red. It's a little bit later red delicious, and they're really nice. Or red seedless, excuse me, red seedless. And if you look in here, I went and put the fall peas in here. So this is snow peas, and they're just blooming right here. And this is snap peas. You can have one.
Wow, delicious.
Yeah, they're really good. And they, you know, they suffered a little bit in the heat, so and plus the competition from the zinnias. The zinnias weren't doing so well, so I just, I'll plant the peas here. Well, once I started watering regularly, the zinnias took off. But this was where all that grain was?
Yeah, the 8 foot tall.
Yeah, right. And anyways, that obviously has been harvested. I planted some buckwheat, and then that got really tall, so I tilled that in. And actually what I did is I mowed it down, and this is actually einkorn.
Einkorn.
The grain, and I had some left over. It's not one that I'm going to grow for food because it has a hole on it that's really hard to get off. But I used it as a cover crop. And I'll till that in. This is where I want to plant potatoes next year. And that's all the fertilization. I won't do any more than that. And this, more potatoes. These are German butterballs. And I got to start pulling the mulch off and harvesting these. They're ready to come out. I wish there was a frost on them and actually kill them, but it didn't happen, so. I don't know if I told you, the plants were about this tall. And when they got that luxuriant growth, they don't make potatoes. So what I started doing was I stopped watering them so much to stress them to do the other end, but it didn't work. Asparagus. This is Maximilian sunflower here. And it's a fall bloomer, obviously. It's just starting. And you'll see it, this gets water, so that's why it's so tall, but some are blooming at this height, and mine are blooming at this height. Anyways, we'll step in the garden room real quick. It's full. I don't know if you got this last time. That's all the Arabian blue barley, which is ready to thresh. And the reason it's in the tarps, because it all fell over, and I had to do it one handful at a time, harvesting and cutting it with pruners. That's what I did. That's what I did with the whole thing. Okay. So, and this is that rye that was 6 feet tall or more. But you can do this. I'm gonna, with my clean hands. Rye is generally a gray-green color, but this is more of a tan and much longer. And I'll eventually get to this on a rainy day. I'll clean the floor up in here and thresh it right here.
Oh, wow.
On the floor. And then I'll screen it and winnow it after that. Wow. But it doesn't matter when I do that. But you can see there's all the onions and garlic.
It's a ton of garlic. Are you gonna sell
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
are you going to sell some garlic?
I'm going to sell all that garlic. These 2 baskets of garlic, there's 100 bulbs in there. And I'm going to plant this for seed. And the label, seed. You know, if I don't label them, they'll disappear.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, so.
Yeah.
There's 100 bulbs, so that means there's about 900 cloves here. Wow. in each basket. So
1,800 plants.
Yeah.
That's 1,800 bulbs that you'll sell later.
And I'll sell all of that. And I'll eat it. That's turkey red. And the other one's incholium. And there's a smaller one in there. So there's still plenty of stuff to do.
Yeah, it's never ends.
No. And this here is the amaranth. It's not quite ready, and I'm not going to water it anymore. Can't do anything about the rain. But we checked it just the other day, and so you can see there's the little amaranth grains.
No pearl millet this year?
No pearl millet, no. I have 25 pounds.
Whoa.
I don't need it. And that's all it is. So next year I'll be growing mainly dry beans to catch up on my stock on that. That was my grasshopper crop, and it's mowed down. There, and that's all going to be dug up. But the amaranth did well.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and this was, well, it is the popcorn. We harvested the popcorn on Friday, and it's in the house. I'll show you that.
Whoa. Still have a ton of raspberries.
Yeah, I got tired of eating them, so I just enjoy them. I really like them cooked in my oatmeal in the morning when I do that. Last year they hardly did anything, and this year they've overproduced.
Wow, that's a good problem.
Yeah, I have 4 gallons frozen. And of course this was Anasazis turned over, harvested, the barley. This was dry beans, and this was where the garlic was, and I came back and planted the pintos, and now the pintos are drying out. And this is, you know, some of them, it's funny how this happens. This is my only complaint. I didn't need the rain to dry this out, but it's not going to hurt it. But if you've ever, those are the pintos. And as they dry, they get a little bit darker.
I see. So
yeah.
Like the store-bought ones.
Yeah. But they still got another week or 2 yet. And if a frost is coming, I'm going to bring my tarps out and cover this, because I want them to dry here mainly than me harvesting too early. And here's some more of that spinach planted a little bit later. This is where the beets that went to seed, the seed crop, and you can see there's still some beets coming up, but that's that giant winter, and then there's some Bloomsdale, winter Bloomsdale, that one there. We still have some tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, and this is really funny if we go down here. I'm gonna dig some more potatoes here. There's some sort of bug, and I actually think it was a type of potato aphid. It's, you know, it might be blight, but the potatoes look fine. Blight will affect the potato itself, where the potatoes are fine. They're not very big, but they're fine. But this delicata vine is a cross. That one was a cross with a delicata and probably a pumpkin, and it's grown really well. And you can see the size of them. Soccer ball, look at them. Wow. So I don't know what they're gonna taste like, but we'll find out.
Yeah, let me know. Save some seeds for me. Please.
You know, but that's a cross, like I said, between a delicata and a pumpkin.
Okay. Wow.
And it's just that one vine. The rest of them are delicatas in there. All the grapes there are harvested. And as the thing goes along, I slow down the watering. You know, and even the carrots, if it's too wet, sometimes there'll be something that sort of rots the side. So I actually was slowing down, but like I said, we had rain.
Yeah, you got lucky.
Yeah. These are the potatoes I dug this morning. So all I did was soak them and rinse them, and now I'm drying them out. And you can see I prefer this size or a little bit bigger, but most of them are these. Yeah. And it's just what's happened this year. I still got potatoes. I have plenty. You can see the popcorn here. These are the ones I'm going to save for seed. They're 60 years. So I do 2/3 white, 1/3 reds, and I'll hang them on the side of my windows. You can see popcorn shells. I hope the string, if you want to look right here, this is, there's your black turtle beans cleaned, Montezuma red beans cleaned there, and there's your Zuni golds there. And what I'm doing is I'm sorting through them, and those are the jars for seed for next year. Right there. And here's the cranberries right there. So I'm actually picking through, and you can see this is the not good stuff. And I'm going to sort through this to fill up that jar. Anyway, you got to put this right there. And I'm just mixing it up because it's fun. That's all that is. So as we get lower, but you take it around like that, wrap it around once, and then what holds it in place, you do this. And that will stay there, it won't come apart. And just roll it around the top. There you go. Yeah, so the only thing is it goes under and then over. And the weight of all the corn cobs hold it together. And the only one I tie is the bottom one.
And so is the red a different variety of popcorn?
No, it's all, what I originally bought was Japanese white holus. And a few ears the first year showed up red. So I encouraged the red to be about 1/3. And Laura Parker at High Desert Seeds.
Yeah.
She's grown it out a few times, and we came up with the name Jubilee Popcorn, and that's what she's selling on her seed racks, is this popcorn.
Right. Wow.
So I've had this for 15 years or more, and when I first bought it, it was really small kernels, and it took about, and I wasn't trying to do anything. I just kept on growing it out. And now you can see that these kernels of popcorn are about 3 times the size of what I bought. Wow. Just by growing it in good conditions and stuff. Popcorn has to dry, so this is not ready to pop for another 2 weeks. It really has to be dry. It would just smolder in a pan.
If you wanted to, you could grind this up.
You could. But it's so hard.
Oh,
it's way harder. That's why it can pop. You get that heat in there, and the moisture in it has no place to go.
Oh, that's how it pops. Interesting.
Yeah. So this is the last one, and it's just a simple little. That's all you need. Now last year I had that blue corn, and it was down to here because it's twice the size of these cobs.
Oh.
Yeah, years, and then I got to throw away. Oh, I put it in the compost. I don't throw it away.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Natural fiber.
Yeah. Old Montgomery Ward, 1903 is what it was made. So that's 100 and what? 21 years old.
Wow.
And corn goes in there, and all the kernels. I put tarps, buckets down, and the cobs come out here. Not that it really matters, but and I put the bucket with the cobs with the full kernel right here. So all I have to do is pick it up, and the only thing that you have to remember is to not put your hand in here. Put your hand like this, because it's spiked. It makes a little noise, but it works.
100-year-old corn sheller.
Yeah. Last video, November 2nd. And you'll see the garden's mostly harvested, and we're gonna fill up the storage trench. So I got that all ready. That's what I've been doing all morning. So, but we'll show you around just a little bit so you can see what the fall garden looks like. That's all that's left, is right, the green that you see, that's all that's left in the garden. And this is 10 rows of garlic. I think I planted about 1,500 cloves in there. And I won't have to touch that till next spring. It's great. This time of year, it's nice to have everything getting cleaned up. So, yeah, this bed, this was all the seed crop, if you remember. And actually, I got some volunteers. We grew red salad bowl lettuce, and there it is. And there's some carrots coming up from the seed crop. And I came in here and planted spinach right after the beet crop, and the beets volunteered. So I guess the seed must be pretty good. And so this area has obviously all been hand turned with a shovel. And this will be all the beds next year. All the carrots, onions, that kind of stuff. Raspberries will be cut to the ground. All the amaranth has been cut. It's still drying, but you can see the stumps there. And that will have to be, if I get to it, I'll clean it up this year. If I don't, I'll do it in the springtime. All the hoses are ready to be put away. But this is what I wanted to show you. So you can see all the winter squash, garlic, onions, and then you have, those are boxes of potatoes, those fruit boxes, potatoes, and then you have French fingerlings there, and then German butterballs.
You wash them?
I rinse them, I do not wash them.
Okay.
You don't want to scrub them because then you mess up the skins and they won't store as well. And this is my little trick. those cabbages will store into April.
To eat. So you just put them in dirt?
That's sand. And I'll come in every 2 weeks and make sure that sand is moist.
Okay.
Yeah, and you don't want them to have light on them. And put this over. It's a few too many cabbages for me, but it's always better to have too much. That's rye.
Rye.
Yeah. You can't see that, but that's that Arabian blue barley. And those are just winter projects. It doesn't have to be done now. I got plenty of food in the house. Oh. Like that. That was the German butterballs there. And I don't know what I'm going to plant next year. I'm going to plant the potatoes up in that far space that's been tilled there. This is the asparagus bed. I've cut them all down and then I turned the soil here. And then I'll bring some more compost before the season's out. I got that one last pile out there. So half that pile of compost out there will go here, another half over on the raspberries. So here we are. And all these tarps, because it was for frost, is what that was. Oh, so we got kale, still, also we have carrots. There's still some finocchio, kohlrabi, and there's still quite a few beets here.
Your sweet peas look like they're raging.
They actually have been frozen, sorry to say. The peas in there. You know, I checked them. The frost didn't kill them, but you can see that that's been frozen. It's not green, it just... So, anyways, off. That's what happens. That's a Nantes. Nantes are generally skinnier and stuff, but that one, they get a little fat here sometimes.
Wow, looks like a great carrot.
Yeah. And then this is I dug this yesterday evening, and it only takes about 45 minutes. This is for storage for winter. Instead of a root cellar, this is how I store it, because I don't have a root cellar. Every 2 weeks throughout the winter, I'll dig down in there and get enough for vegetables, produce for a couple weeks. And that's what this is here. We put straw down, then we put the vegetables in there, then we put more straw, put the dirt over the top, and the bales on top of that is what I've ended up doing. So it's about 16 inches wide, approximately 12 inches deep. Anyway, so we got beets, and you leave them dirty. Leave everything dirty, leave some top. Those are the German Lutz. There's a Chioggia. The rodent's got most of my goldens, but there's a golden. And then the other one, that's a regular Detroit dark red. Right there. And dirty. That's a China rose radish. Who knows what kind that is. That's probably a round black Spanish. There's a pink one. They're fun. It was a package called Fiesta de Rebollas. In other words, party of radishes. And that's why I get all these different ones. The China rose, I actually have that separate. And these are all just storage, and I'll use them, store them, I'll grate them in salads, that kind of stuff is what I do with it. There's kohlrabi, and again, you roots on it, and I trim the tops off, and this is called azure, A-Z-U-R-E, and that will store clear into April also. And then this is just a mix of carrots. And again, you trim them this way, and you don't wash them, don't do anything, but if you cut into this, it will rot, so you leave the top like that. And then these things, better to get one of these. These 2 buckets are for seed crop. And you trim them different, you trim them this way. And if you can see that, because if I left them like this, that whole top would rot, and then it wouldn't grow anymore. But you have to trim them like this. Make sure I put it in there. But you can, again, this is a carrot called rumba, which is not grown commercially anymore. It's a type of Nantes, and for whatever reason, in the seed market, vegetable market, they stopped growing it. And these are the Italian giant red. So you can see these can get awful big. You can see the pyramid. You know, they say not to store something like this. I always try to store these things just to see what really happens.
Yeah.
And most of the time they store just fine. Yeah, so. And then the other thing, I'm going to throw that whole box of German butterballs in there. I'll throw those all in there.
So you can store potatoes.
And store potatoes in there.
Wow.
Other things that would store good are turnips, rutabagas, any of those kind of root things. For onions and garlic will just rot, and so would winter squash. Parsnips would do really good in there.
So any root vegetable.
Any real, root vegetable like that. So this is the straw from my wheat that I grew this year. You don't need that much. And I found that when you dig it deeper, it starts to get warm, and it doesn't, it stinks, it's too warm. So 12 inches is really about what you want. You don't go more than 16 inches wide. If it goes too wide, there's your bale of hay, and the cold air comes in off the side.
What about people that are in warmer climates? Is this still a worthy way of doing it?
This would be good. You just do it later. I used to do this for last week of October. Now it's the first week of November. So I'll start harvesting at this end. So I'm going to put these different carrots, because I don't want them to come out till March. I'm going to put them at that end. And next year, I'll plant one of the varieties of carrots here in the garden for seed crop. And I'll have to find another garden. I am just layering them out, and I'm making use of the space. You can double it up, but after that you don't want to. And some of these will rot, some will not, so you've got way more than what I need. And what the stick is for is to separate the two varieties. These guys get pretty big, and there's a lot of variety within this. Look at that, looks like an Nantes, and they're both the same carrot. And sometimes rodents do get in here, but it's never that bad. It's not an issue. So there's a nice mix in there, and so whenever you get in, you get all the different stuff. And it's okay to have too much, because there's always somebody that needs some produce, especially in the wintertime. And I'll clean this out in March, and then I'll have, it's one of the few times my refrigerator is actually full. I will get another armful of straw to cover that all. I'm just gonna, can't walk in there now. I'm just getting this the right depth. Now that straw on top will settle down with the weight of the dirt. So the next thing is actually to bury it all. That's the beginning of it. Here's the end. And then you just, and you can see this soil is a little bit redder. That's from the subsoil, so I try to put that down first. Oops. And it seems like just in my timing of things, I always put this trench where the winter squash grew. And I don't know that's, it's not any rhyme or reason, it's just that that's when this soil is ready to do the trench. You could do it all with that cultivator type thing, or you can do it this way. And this trench happens to be about 13 feet long. The stake at that end, as I harvest, gets moved this way. And this is marking the end, so you'll see I'll put a bale right there and then all the way down. The hay bales keep the ground from freezing and getting that cold in so your vegetables won't freeze, is what they're doing. And the trick is, yeah, you put the bales down, like I said, 16 inches wide is the trench. Really as deep as you want, but the deeper you go, the warmer it gets, and that's not what you want. And then at the end, I learned the hard way. I used to just put the bales down, and the snow would snow on them, and that snow would melt and freeze everything solid all the way down. So over there at the very end is the metal roofing, corrugated steel that goes on top. See the shovel? It's almost straight. That's what you want. You don't want those big bows and an angle off. You want a straight one. This is an irrigating shovel. You want a straight shovel that comes straight off the shaft. It's for digging. And right now I know they cost $70, but you'll have it the rest of your life. I have worn out a few. If you use a shovel a lot, they get smaller. I've had them down to about here, just from use. Level this out a little bit. And these are old spoiled bales. You can use bales of straw. You can even pile up a whole bunch of leaves as long as you keep them from blowing away. It'll work. So there's that stake. See, there's the stake. So that's the end of the bed, the trench there. You have to watch to make sure you stay in a straight line. This bales of hay came from down the road, and 2 winters ago at the guy's place, the deer were so hungry they tore the stack apart and it all collapsed. And so these were laying on the ground rotten. So I was able to get them just by hauling them. You know, some people want you to pay. Some people are thankful you come and get them out of their way. And eventually they get so rotten that I use them on mulch for the potatoes, and from there they go to the compost. There's the stick at the beginning. If I don't put a bale here, it'll freeze in that way. So I'm gonna grab one more. So it's taking 11 bales to do a 13-foot trench. There's that. Just like that.
Can you explain the process now that we got the bales, like how you actually go through it?
Yep, I'll take this one out, set it here like this, probably snow on the ground. I'll take this one out, probably set it just like that. And just to add some extra room, I will take this one and put it right there. And I will dig from the stake at the beginning to about here. And I'll take everything in there, and I'll take the straw out what I can, and that will go in the compost. And then I'll put the stake there. And I'll probably still have to do all the bales. The next time I go in, I'll start taking the bales and putting them away, because I won't need as many. You can see there's no holes. The mice have to be pretty determined to get in there. See how it all goes and hope it gets colder. You know? See, this one's pretty rotten. This will go in the compost next year.
You use these bales several years?
2 to 3.
Wow.
Yeah. But that one's pretty gone. So here's and who knows where I collected this from. And it's nice to get this done, one step closer to finishing the season.
Are you ready to take a break?
Yes, I am ready to take a break. It'll take me about 2 weeks to unwind from the entire season. I'm doing this, see, overlapping this because this is downhill, and all the snow, if it melts, rain will go that way. Now the finishing touch. These tires here keep the tin from blowing in the wind. There we go. We're ready for winter. Yeah, this is the end of the season. I got my storage pit ready and stored. I hope that everybody learned something and you know, have questions.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and share this video with anyone who's ready to live a resilient life.